Ready or not, here I come. No, I did not forget what service I'm in, though I did just come from the kids. When I hear these words, I am instantly a child playing a game of hide and seek. I'm crouching down in my hiding place, waiting breathlessly, wondering how well I did at hiding myself away. Will they find me? Perhaps you can recall the joy of waiting and wondering as well, of running around your house maybe, or your neighborhood, finding the perfect closet or clump of trees to disappear into. There is an ironic aspect of this beloved childhood game, though. The satisfaction of having the good hiding place is dwarfed in comparison to the exhilaration of revealing your good hiding place. The moment when the person looking for you actually sees where you've been is the most exciting moment in the game. If this seems untrue, just think about how young children play hide and seek. Young children so love being spotted in a game of hide and seek that they often hide in the most obvious of ways, like with half of them sticking out, or by shouting not so subtly, "I bet you can't find me." They anticipate the experience of being sought and the moment of encounter with their seekers so much that they can hardly stand to remain hidden. And conversely, the worst possible outcome of this game is for a child to not be found. The disappointment, the sadness, the utter loneliness of the moment when you realize that your playmates have given up searching for you is unparalleled. No child ever wants to hide that well. Recently, I was reminded that it's not just children, though, who play hide and seek, and it was the great Jewish philosopher Shel Silverstein who opened my eyes. In his book of children's poetry, Everything on It, that was published posthumously in 2011, he has a short and incisive poem called Masks that I'd like to share with you. The illustration, of course, his illustrations are essential to understanding his poems. The illustration on the page of Silverstein's book shows two tiny people holding up gigantic masks over their bodies, walking away from each other. And the poem reads like this: Masks by Shel Silverstein. She had blue skin, and so did he. He kept it hid, and so did she. They searched for blue their whole life through, then passed right by and never knew. The sense of missed opportunity, of wasted time, of pervasive loneliness leaps off the page. When I read Silverstein's 3 simple sentences, I am struck by his message and the sad reality it elucidates. We often continue playing hide and seek long past our childhood days, and we become much more skilled at it. And the consequences of our stellar hiding can be heartbreaking because we are left alone, having missed that pivotal moment, the chance to be truly seen and known, to be found. In the childhood game of hide and seek, we hide our physical selves, maybe behind a curtain or under a table or amidst a bush. In our adult games of hide and seek, we hide in other ways. The world we live in, like a great big house or a wood, offers us a surplus of excellent hiding places. Our culture of oversaturation of television and media images can easily distract us from our own lives. We communicate in a barrage of text messages and tweets and Facebook posts that let us talk all the time without ever actually saying what it is we need to say. We manage to avoid our moral responsibilities by consuming ourselves with trivialities that are always a mouse click or a screen slide away. The parent who sees years of missed games and recitals, who longs to change, but whose shame prevents him from making a new start. The grown child who knows she's not who her parents want her to be, so she pretends to be someone else. The spouse who feels alone in the marriage but cannot find the words to ask for more. The siblings whose parents' death drives them further apart instead of closer together. The daughter who never brought herself to ask her sick father, "Dad, how long do you want to fight this illness? Please know you can tell me when you're tired. And tell me now, while you still have breath, what has meant the most to you in your life?" The friends who could never set aside their pride long enough to say that what they quarreled about doesn't matter anymore. The young man who knows he would be a great tutor for a young kid, but cannot bring himself to get up that early or to sacrifice the time. The woman who has the time, the wit, the connections to devote to a cause, but is too afraid to upset the balance of her life and confront the misery that is just down the street. We hide from ourselves and God behind a facade of pride or stubbornness or disconnection, ashamed of our own shortcomings and deaf to our own spiritual yearnings. We hide our emotions and our wounds from those closest to us under a guise of avoidance or cordiality, holding grudges or shying away from necessary conversations. We hide from our roles and responsibilities in life, hiding our voices and our many resources amidst inconsequential conversations and shallow pursuits. We are so steeped in hiding places and so competent at hiding from the reality of our numbered days that we are apt to forget that simple and profound message from childhood. Getting found is the whole point. The human soul needs to be found and recognized. It yearns to come out of hiding. But we know from the game, there's nothing lonelier than not being found. Our Jewish tradition recognizes at every turn that human beings have a tendency to hide rather than face life's most challenging realities. From Jacob pretending to be Esau, to Jonah and the whale that Rabbi Grossman spoke of on Rosh Hashanah, from Sarah posing as Abraham's sister, to Miriam in the bulrushes. Hiding is one of the Hebrew Bible's favorite motifs. The first human beings in the Torah, Adam and Eve, play a game of hide and seek. Adam and Eve are instructed by God never to eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge. Overcome by curiosity, they take a bite anyway, as we know. The taste of awareness and of transgression causes them to become self-conscious. They notice that they're naked, and they make clothes for themselves. Then, when they hear God approaching, they run into the Garden of Eden and hide. Are they hiding because of their nakedness, embarrassed of their ignorance, or are they hiding because of their horrible error in judgment, ashamed at having giving in to temptation? In its brilliant irony, the Torah casts Joseph and his amazing Technicolor dreamcoat as a master of camouflage. After Joseph's brothers cast him into the pit and sell him into slavery, he's rightfully angry, filled with distrust and deep hurt. When his brothers re-enter his life many years later, they do not recognize Joseph, now Pharaoh's grand vizier, and he does not reveal himself. He is not sure they've changed, and so he keeps his identity hidden. As he stands over his brothers, watching them not see him, we might ask, does Joseph feel powerful as he holds this grudge, or is he desperately afraid of being hurt again? Can he come to terms with the strife that has taken place in his family? With all the years lost, is there still hope for peace for these people? And is it worth the risk? And perhaps the most compelling and maybe even the most familiar story in our Bible, the heroine Esther keeps her identity hidden from King Ahasuerus. She is terrified to reveal that she is a Jew, even to save her people from Haman's evil plot. Having to confront her own enjoyment of her fortunate circumstances, she has to ask herself if she's really experiencing contentment in her life. Will she be able to live with the consequences, with the guilt of remaining hidden and doing nothing? Esther's name in Hebrew actually means hiding. and her personal struggle becomes a lens through which we can view all the choices of our biblical characters I mentioned, and even our own choices. In Jewish mystical literature, the rabbis translate the words Yom Kippurim, the formal name of this day, not as the Day of Atonements, but rather as the day Kippurim, the day like Purim. Yom Kippur is like Purim because on both days, we recognize how little of our lives we can control. In the story of Purim, the Jews of Shushan were living in relative security until Haman's horrible decree. Then their lives were turned upside down, like that. On Yom Kippur, we say, who shall live and who shall die? And we do teshuvah, hoping that we can make the best of the gift of a new year, knowing in our hearts that there is no guarantee we'll get another one. What's dramatically different about these two holidays is their response to that fearful reality. On Purim, the response to the unpredictability of life is the party. It's the Purim spiel, the masquerade, the drunkenness, the laughter. It's hiding from the fear that such realizations bring upon us. Instead of lingering on our powerlessness, we dress up, drink, and revel. I suppose it is a special gift of Jewish humor that we can turn a story about prostitution and genocide into a cause for a big party. Somehow we do it. But the attitude of Yom Kippur is that we actually spend most of our lives hiding from the harsh realities of human existence. Yom Kippur asserts that we embrace the abandon of Purim and blind ourselves to other people's suffering and to our own frailties most of the time. And Yom Kippur says, not today. Today is when we stop hiding. Each of our biblical characters, each of us, must choose an approach to life, Purim or Yom Kippur, hiding from or facing our lives' most challenging circumstances. I believe that these stories, the values that emerge from them, are speaking directly to you and me. Each one beseeches us to come out of hiding and choose Yom Kippur. Our Jewish tradition understands with all of the simplicity and wisdom of a child that staying hidden leads to loneliness, and that only through the fulfillment and joy and connection that comes with being found does life become rich and authentic and meaningful and worthy of the great gift that it is to be granted another year. Esther's story is about finding the courage to face our responsibilities. We understand her struggle because we too are constantly faced with choices like that. The turning point for Esther is when Mordecai comes to her and says, don't imagine that you will escape with your life by being in the king's palace. On the contrary, if you keep silent in a crisis, you will perish. And who knows, perhaps you have attained to royal position for just such a crisis. His advice to her is to us. He's saying, look at your life. What do you have the power to do? Who do you have the power to help? Do not think, because you found security and ways to occupy your time, that you are fulfilling your purpose on this earth. Be a part of the story of the betterment of humanity. Maybe that's why you're here anyway. And we know, because we know the story, that Esther chooses Yom Kippur, ironically, rather than Purim. She comes out of hiding. When she does, she experiences the most profound freedom by surrendering to the calls of those who need her. She finds herself and is found by her purpose. Our congregation is committed to being a force for good in the world. And part of our holy work together is to help one another be found by our purpose, to rise to our highest potential as servants of humanity, whether it's one of our direct social action projects or advocacy on issues of social justice throughout the year, answering Esther's question, how can I serve? is our first step toward true freedom. Joseph's story is about finding the strength to face our family and friends. We know that this is incredibly difficult because of the complexity of love. Love opens us up to deep hurt. Hurt we can inflict, and hurt we can experience. The grudges we hold, the masks we wear, the harsh word and the unspoken word are each their own kind of poison and will be the most painful parts of losing the ones we love. This is why Joseph chooses Yom Kippur and decides to forgive his brothers. He says, "It is I, Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt, but do not be distressed or reproach yourself anymore." He kissed his brothers and wept upon them, and only then were they able to talk to him. Joseph's relationships to his brothers became so strong after this moment that he was even able to share with them his final wishes, where he wished to be buried and how he wanted to be remembered as he saw his own death approaching. He died peacefully, leaving nothing unsaid, but he did leave a shelter of peace upon those who remained behind. Our congregational family can be a source of strength in each of our lives. This year, we have launched an initiative called Sacred Conversations to help loved ones talk about what is most important in all our lives, how we want to be taken care of at the end of our lives, medically and emotionally, how to deal with the loss of our life's most cherished partners, and what our true legacy to one another will be. Dr. Scott Morris of the Church Health Center and Rabbi Greenstein will be beginning these conversations in their session after this service, and these conversations will continue throughout the year. We learn from Joseph and from our own experiences that sometimes looking our own fate in the eye makes us more able to share ourselves, and sometimes finding and sharing ourselves makes us more able to look our own fate in the eye. If we walk that road together with as much openness as possible, we will find internal peace along the way. Adam and Eve's story is about facing ourselves, facing our mistakes, facing God. When Adam and Eve run into the garden to hide, God calls to them with the first question in the Torah. Ayeka, where are you? Our rabbis teach us that because God is omniscient, God is not asking Adam and Eve about their physical location. God knows where they are. Rather, God is asking about their ethical, moral, and spiritual location. Ayeka, where are you? And even more to the point, who are you? Do you know? This congregation is a home for living Torah through exploring our ethical dilemmas as Jews, which we'll do this year, through meaningful prayer, through honesty and learning and celebrating and mourning and singing and loving. Temple Israel is a real place full of real encounters, a place where being seen and heard and found is the point, not the accidental side effect. God's question to Adam and Eve rings forth from the pages of the Torah scroll and reverberates off the walls of this sanctuary. It is the question of Yom Kippur, the question of our lives. Adam and Eve are unable to answer. They choose Purim. They fumble, they finger point, they avoid, and when all is said and done, God exiles them from the Garden of Eden. They leave, having never revealed their truest selves. We are their children, and perhaps we have an answer. Perhaps we can say, as they could not, we are human. We make mistakes. We give in to our worst instincts. We fail and we fall. But we choose Yom Kippur. We want to be seen and loved. We want to be found. No matter what we have done, no matter whom we have hurt. God is waiting for us to reveal our hiding places. Ayeka, God asks, where are you? Hineni, we answer, as children of Abraham. Here I am. Perhaps today I am ready. Good Yontif.